All right, it's 2:01, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name's Chip Zimmer. I'm with the Kentucky Division of Water, and I'll be the presenter this month. So, as always, this is hosted by the State Climatologist Office, which is a division of the Kentucky Climate Center at Western Kentucky University. And we have a number of great partners, including the UK College of Agriculture, the Weather Service, National Drought Mitigation Center, and Division of Water, and the National Weather Service. So just general information. Like I said, this is presented by the Climate Center at Western Kentucky University. It's done in the partnership with National Integrated Drought Information System in coordination with the Midwest Drought Early Warning System. And our next webinar will be December 1st at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because this weekend we fall back from daylight savings time to standard time. So make sure you change all your clocks come Sunday morning. And this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing later. And it's also streaming live on the Kentucky Climate Center YouTube channel. So as always, let me go back real quick. And the picture behind here is from Henderson County. Looks like it's a field that's been recently harvested, but you can see a rainbow there on the right side. Something that we didn't get to see much of till the end of the month. Having a chance to have a rainbow, you need rain, and we didn't see much of that. So going ahead, we are going to be going through our normal process this month with conditions, impacts, outlooks, then summary and questions. And we have two pictures here on the left. The first one's from the Nicholas County Mesonet Station. And it is, you can see the pasture there is not looking good. And you can see the cattle there. They are being fed hay, which is it's a little early for that. So that's something we'll be talking about a little bit later. And on the bottom is the Pike County Mesonet, and you can see all the fall colors there on the mountains. A little bit early this year, but it was good to see. Precipitation. This is a 7-day precipitation. You see, this is just looking at the precipitation that we had over the weekend. It does not include that other rain that we had at the beginning of last week. And you can see the totals here, all less than an inch. A little bit heavier amounts over in the western half of the state. Once you get into central Kentucky and in the east central Kentucky, you see totals only a third of an inch, 2/3 of an inch. So wasn't a drought buster, but it was great to have that rain. If you look at the 30-day precipitation, you see pretty much blue across the state. So you're looking at 1 to 2 inches there, and the lighter blues there are a ½ inch to an inch. And really, this just includes those 2 rains at the end of the month, because the rest of the month was pretty dry. So you can see anywhere from just over an inch, inch and a half in western Kentucky. You get up into central and eastern Kentucky, you're looking at values, some places less than an inch of rain for the entire month of October. The past 60 days, not much better. You can see a lot of 2 to 4 inches of rain. It's the light green. And those blue areas are places that only got 1 to 2 inches of rain. And even a place there in Marion County that saw less than an inch of rain over the past 60 days, which is, that's pretty phenomenal to see. Again, this is our driest time of the year, but you're still looking at several inches each month, not 1 to 2 inches. So very dry. And a lot of this either fell at the very end of October or the very beginning of September. So we had almost a 2-month stretch where it really just did not rain other than a few sprinkles. Looking at the 90 days, again, a little bit more rain, especially up in northern Kentucky and a little bit into eastern Kentucky. where you can see some totals up there. Over, Pike County, you got 10 inches of rain. Up in northern Kentucky, places that are 7, 8 inches of rain. But you go out to western Kentucky, less than 5 inches of rain, 6 inches of rain. And it's kind of scattered. You can see it was very scattered in nature. So some places 4 or 5 inches of rain, some places next county over 6 or 7 inches of rain. What this doesn't show, because it happened, this goes through the beginning of August, is the big rain that hit southeast Kentucky in the end of July. So that's kind of off the table now for the 90-day totals. But still some places very dry over the past 90 days as well. And looking at just, this is the percent of normal precipitation, 30, 60, 90 days. Again, 30 days, you can see some places there in the red. That's 10 to 25% of normal over the past 30 days up there in central and northeast Kentucky. And if you go look at the 60-day, again, that there's a tongue going from western Kentucky up the parkways towards Lexington, and even in the northeast Kentucky, that was less than 20%. And again, there's a few spots in there that were less than 25% of a normal precipitation over the past 2 months. And again, if you look at the 90-day, you see pretty much a general 90, less than 90%, less than 75% of your normal precipitation. And you go out to the purchase area, you see around the Paducah area, some places that were less than 50%, even a small area in Livingston County that is less than 25% of normal for a 90-day period. And so for the month of October, the state averaged 1.39 inches, which is over an inch and a half below normal. And running from September 6th to October 31st, the state only averaged 2.34 inches of rain, and that's 3.72 inches below normal. So you're talking 30 to 40% of the normal rainfall over since September 6th. For the year, we're sitting, still sitting about 3.5 inches above normal for the whole year. But we had that very wet spring, dry summer, and then a wet period at the end of July, early August, and then we dried back out again. So it's been a kind of a wild year. Looking at the precipitation here, this is from the Mesonet. The top one is Graves County, and you can see very wet through, this is accumulated rainfall, so very wet through May into June, and then you can see it dried out into August. They got a little rain in late July, August, but Graves County never quite came out of that summer drought. They were still in moderate drought through into fall, and then dried back out again this fall. And so now, so you can see they've been through an extended dry period. If you go look, the bottom two ones, Breckenridge and Breathitt County, you see, again, they had the wet spring in the summer, had a fairly dry summer, but then you see that big rainfall at the end of July and early August. And that really erased any dryness in those areas. But then again, it just came back again. So while it did a lot of damage, that rainfall did save us from being in an extended drought from basically from May till now. So there was some good that came out of it. Unfortunately, it came at a very high cost. Looking at precipitation levels for October, or sorry, not precipitation, temperature for October. It was below normal. It was October ran average of 55 degrees, which is 2 degrees below normal. If you look on the top left, you see it was a little colder in southeastern Kentucky. And then it was a little less below normal as you move towards the Ohio River. And right there, just around Shelby County, Spencer County there, actually was about normal for the month. Now, if you look at the average minimum temperatures for the month, they were well below normal, 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees below normal. So very cold mornings. And then you look at the maximum temperatures below normal in Eastern Kentucky. The rest of the state was normal. So, and you can contribute a lot of that probably to the dry weather and the dry ground. Low dew points lets the temperature drop at night. We get those cool nights. We had a couple freezes in the middle of October. Even Lexington, Louisville picked up a trace of snow in middle October. But then during the day, sunshine hits that dry ground, that dry air, it heats up quickly, and you get normal highs to go along with the below normal lows. So this is the U.S. Drought Monitor released today. You can see it is very colorful, which is not something we want to see. You really have to go to the Florida Peninsula or up into parts of the New England, Mid-Atlantic to find places not in drought. Pretty much everywhere else in the country is at drought or abnormally dry. You see some big pockets of exceptional drought over the plains and also out in California. Just looking at the state, you can see almost the entire state is in some category of dryness or drought, exception being just a little bit of Pike County there. If you go to Western Kentucky, they are in extreme drought out in the Purchase. And then we have an area of severe drought, basically, just like you saw on the precipitation maps for the 60-day map, that severe drought runs along the parkways to the Lexington area. And basically everybody who outside of the area that saw severe flooding is in D1 drought or higher. Those areas just went into abnormally dry conditions. Basically the fire risk has really kind of driven that, since they have dried out to the point where they're having a lot of fires out there. It was kind of time to put them into abnormally dry conditions, which is kind of amazing to see after all that rain just over 3 months ago. This is the change map from the past 4 weeks. So basically from the last time we had this webinar to now, you can see a lot of degradation across states, including Kentucky. You see a few pockets there of 3 classes of degradation, which you could only go 1 class per week. So that means 3 out of the past 4 weeks, there has been degradation in those spots. So again, lots of drying out, and it hasn't just been Kentucky, it's been the whole Midwest and Southeast US. You did see some improvement there in Arkansas and Missouri. A lot of that was the last week where we had the rain. They had more. It was more focused on them, and we kind of got the leftovers. And unfortunately, it's looking like that again this weekend. Also, this drought monitor this week, this is the most D0 to D4 through the continental United States that there's ever been. This goes back to the drought monitor, goes back to 1999. So since then, this is the highest percentage of the country that's been in drought or abnormally dry, just under 85%. And you can see the next couple highest are also previous weeks from this fall, and then the rest are 2012, which I'm sure we all remember that as well. Another rough time. So pretty amazing to see just this much dryness across the entire country. Soil moisture and stream flows. Looking at the sport soil moisture model, you can see all those reds. Deeper the red, the drier the soil is, and basically everybody but southeastern Kentucky is got dry soils even after those past couple rains. Just not enough rain to moisten up the soil column yet. We definitely need a lot more. Not saying that rain wasn't helpful, because it was, but we need a lot more of that. Down at the bottom left is the percentage of topsoil that's short to very short. So we have 80% of the state has topsoil that is short or very short. And that's an improvement. Last week it was 84%. So it did improve a little bit. And then looking over at stream flows, 7-day average, you can kind of see a mix of normal and much more below normal, even a few much below normals. And then if some of that is because we did get that rain. Some streams kind of popped up, even if it was just temporarily, and that's kind of skewed the average. So you are seeing some that are showing normal. If you looked at that a week ago, it would have been primarily orange and red. And you go to the 28-day average, you see there are some more orange and red in that map. Couple things I'll point out about this map. First, anything on the main stem of the green or its tributaries, the Barren, Rough, or Nolan, those are going to be green regardless, because the U.S. Army Corps is releasing water from those lakes. And before they did that, all those streams, all those rivers were orange and red. So very beneficial that they're, this normal release to go down the winter pool, since they are flood control lakes. And that's the same thing happened over in Leviza Fork as well. So they're scheduled releases, and that's helped flows there. Other thing, I talked with Mary Lamb at the Paducah National Weather Service. She is their hydrologist, about those green dots over in the purchase area, because those were really confusing me considering how dry they were. And we kind of talked about it. She's like, no, they're dry. I don't know why they're showing green. And I kind of did a deep dive into it. And what it boils down to is this is low flow. We are in fall. This is the low flow season to begin with. And the difference between being in the 25th percentile and the 10th percentile on that stream gauge is a matter of few hundredths of a foot. So as good as the USGS is and how great their equipment is calibrated, that's just such a small margin that any little fluctuation in that water level is going to take you from the 10th percentile to the 25th percentile. So it's basically that's as low as it goes, and it's really kind of hard to calculate low flows when they're already pretty much as low as they're going to get. So as we start going into December, average stream flows start coming up, and so that spread between those percentiles should start to spread out. So if we remain dry, we'll probably start seeing more and more of these streams go orange and red as we start moving those averages back up. Going back to the topsoil, that's short and very short. You can see this is a diagram showing those levels throughout the year in red, and all the brown ones are previous years going back to 1995. And you can see we had a spike in late June into July, got up to 80 percentile. And then we got that rain, it dropped back down, and now we've come back up again. And you can also see there's only a couple of years that were drier in terms of topsoil moisture shortages than this fall. So we're definitely up there. You don't see the get above that too often. Also looking at soil moisture, this is soil moisture from some mesonet stations. First, Grace County, I zoomed it out to 6 months to really get the full picture out there. And you can see coming into summer, plenty of soil moisture, dropped down in the summer. The shallower soil moistures, the 2, 4, and 8 inch, did come up in August and September when they had some rains, but you can see those deeper ones, 20 and 40 inches, did not, and they still remain low. Even if this recent rain, the 2 and 4 inch soil moisture did respond. The 8 inch responded a little, but no response from those deeper ones. And going forward, if we those deeper ones, they are impacted only by evapotranspiration. So now that the growing season's over, they're not really going to go down because you don't have the roots pulling that moisture up. Those surface ones do interact with the atmosphere. So that 2 and 4 inch can and will go back down if we don't get more rain. As we get sunny, warm, windy days, that air will suck that moisture out of the soil. So we need more rain, and we need frequent rains to bring everything back up. Looking at the next one's Breckenridge. Again, this is only 3 months. So coming out of July and August, good soil moisture, and drop back down again as we hit this dry period. And the same thing, the shallower soil moisture levels came back up some with that recent rains. The deeper ones didn't. Mason County, the bottom left, you can see in September they did get a rain that saturated into the deeper soil moisture levels, or deeper soil levels. And while that 20 inch has gone down some, not to the same degree as some of the other ones. So their deeper soil moisture is a little better shape, but you can also see that the shallower ones, they didn't get very much rain up in that area this past week. So no real tick up from where those levels are. And the last one's Owsley County. Excuse me. Out in eastern Kentucky, and you can see the deeper levels never really went back down after the big July rain. So they're already in pretty decent shape. The 2 inch levels pretty dry, but those are a lot easier to bring back up than those deeper soil moisture. So again, going back to the sport model, showing that southeast Kentucky not quite as dry soil moisture level wise than the rest of the state. And the Mesonet is confirming that. So storm impacts, not much. It's been, been a quiet month, obviously, for in terms of storms. A little bit of thunderstorm wind damage up in northeastern part of the state, and one hail report down in Russell County. Right. So agriculture. We're, like I said, we had a freeze. The growing season is complete for at least most areas. I know my house, we actually didn't get one yet, so I still have tropical plants growing outside. But for the most part, most places have come to an end. Corn and soybean harvest is underway. You can see 91% of corn has been harvested, 71% of soybeans, and that is at or above or ahead of pace for the past 5 years. So the dry weather, other than the fact that you might set your field on fire, you have to wait for days that aren't as dry and windy. But they're not having to deal with mud to go out there and harvest crops. Winter wheat, you can see a big jump in the amount that was seeded and emerged from last week. That was been a problem with the dry ground, is trying to plant winter wheat. You're basically just dusting it in. So farmers taking advantage of this rain and at least just a little bit of soil moisture there at the surface, and taking advantage of that and planting and getting some wheat to start emerging. As for crop conditions, only one to really point out is pasture. Only 12% of pasture is rated as good or excellent right now. Over 60% is rated poor or very poor. And that's a big issue right now. You can see the picture bottom left from Madison County. That field is in bad shape. A lot of producers already feeding hay. And this was not a great year for hay to begin with that dry summer. So reserves are already not quite full, and now you're feeding early. So that's something going forward through the winter that's going to be a concern is, do producers have enough hay already, and to make it through the winter? And hay prices are starting to go up already as people are stocking up and realizing they need hay to make it through the winter. So it's a good time. Producers need to go ahead and inventory their stock right now and make sure that they have some and get it now before we get into the winter and supplies are limited. And like I said, fires have been a problem while harvesting, and that's that middle picture there is a fire in Henderson and Webster County, that field fires. There were a number of those out especially in Western Kentucky. Just harvesting, spark comes off the combine or tractor and catches the field on fire. Especially during the time, right about the 12th to the 14th, we had red flag warnings, very low humidity and windy, and just with no rain for over a month at that period of time. Just one little spark can start a fire. So it was a hard, that was probably the biggest difficulty this year in harvesting, was the fact that you could accidentally set your field on fire. And then also the other thing is just the dust. I mean, trying to drive through dry fields and harvest, definitely another issue. Another impact has been not just the low stream flows on the smaller streams, but also the Ohio and Mississippi River, the lower Ohio and the Mississippi River. And this is a product of the Kentucky drought, but as we're looking at the whole drought monitor as a whole, the whole Midwestern US has been dry, and especially the Iowa, Kansas, that area, it's been dry throughout the summer as well. So low stream flows on the Mississippi, the Missouri, the Ohio, all kind of accumulated in causing this. I'm sure you've seen it on the news and talking about this. It's been a big story. Just the Mississippi running low and really causing problems for transportation. Barges getting stuck on sandbars, barges not, instead of having large shipping lanes on the river, just having a narrow one. So barges having to park and wait their turn to get through, barges parking and having to wait for flows to come up so they can get through. And also barges not filling up as much. I've heard 60-65% their normal capacity, just so they're not weighted down so they can pass over shallower areas. I mean, you can see some of the pictures, some of the sandbars that were occurring. The left picture is Mound City in Illinois on the Mississippi River. The right is Cairo, right there, just below the mouth of the the Ohio River, meeting up with the Mississippi. And at the bottom is the Ohio River at Cairo, just showing the low flows. This is from the Weather Service in Paducah, when they did have a record low flow on the river. And one of the biggest things with impacts is this is harvest time, and a lot of grains get shipped on barges. And so with the problems, it's causing a lot of problems with suppliers and farmers not being able to get their crop harvested out, since the supply chain is backed up, and the alternatives are trucking, our trains, which are more expensive. And also, we have supply problems already with transportation. So a lot of those are already booked up. So being able to store crop till later into the winter is a big thing right now. Hopefully prices will go back up. Prices because of this have actually dropped as much as $1 per bushel in places because of the transportation issues caused by the low flow on the river. Excuse me. Like I said, fires have been an issue. Kentucky Department of Forestry have reported over 8,400 acres that were burned in October, and that was just ones that they were reported to them or they were working. So they don't take into account fires in the national forest area that's handled by the U.S. Forest Service. And also some of these smaller fires that get put out by the local fire departments don't get reported to them either. So the actual amount of acres burned is higher than this 8,400 acres. But early in the month, we saw fires in Western and Central Kentucky, a lot of field fires caused by harvests. And as the eastern part of the state dried out and we had leaf drop, the fires, we started seeing more and more fires in eastern Kentucky, which peaked kind of right before that first rain that we had. Excuse me. And our fall fire season, we're still in the middle of it, and that continues through December 15th. The map here is just the fire danger class that's put out by the U.S. Forest Service, and you can see there's a couple high areas in western Kentucky. With another warm, sunny, windy day tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised to see that get expanded to other parts of the state. 7-day rainfall prediction. You see, we do some possible rain this week. Unfortunately, that blue area was positioned more into western Kentucky yesterday, and they've kind of backed that to the west. It looks like Arkansas, Missouri, that area is going to get the bulk of the rain, and then it's going to start dying out as it moves across the Mississippi, kind of like what we saw last week. But we still got a few days before we get the system moved through, so it can change. And again, any rain that we can get would be helpful, but it's looking like a half inch or less right now for rainfall than what we would normally see. The 6 to 10 day outlooks, looking at temperature, you can see that the darker the red or the blue is the higher confidence that it's going to be above or below normal temperatures. So that dark red right there, that's saying that they are very confident that we are going to have above normal temperatures between November 8th and 12th. And same being out in the Pacific Northwest and Northern California, they are going to be below normal. Now, this is just the percentage of it happening. It doesn't say that it's going to be hotter in Kentucky than it is going to be in Arkansas. This is just how the probability of it happening. Same thing with precipitation. A little bit of confidence that we are going to have below normal precipitation, especially in the the western half of the state. But that's not a huge probability. So, but as dry as we've been, don't want to see any orange colors. Much rather see the green colors there, but that is not right now. As of right now, that is not in the cards. 8 to 14 day, still predicting warmer temperatures in the eastern U.S., below normal temperatures in the west, but a little less confidence, especially as you head into Kentucky. Again, a little bit of slightly higher confidence of having below normal precipitation in the western part of the state, and then really just not a strong signal for the eastern half of the state. So we're going to kind of in between that drier area and the wetter area on the East Coast. So hopefully that changes and we don't stay in the below normal category. For the month of November, looking like a pretty decent probability that November is going to be above normal in temperature, and not as strong, but some probability that we are also going to be dry. Again, not what we want to see, but it's looking like November will could be below normal precipitation. It's not saying it won't rain. Hopefully, we don't have another streak like we did in September, October, where we just don't rain at all. But definitely looking like we're not going to get as much rain as we would like to see in November. Looking at November through January, no real signal for us in terms of temperature or precipitation. Looking like the southern U.S. and up the East Coast will be possibly be above normal temperature, and southern U.S. being dry, but no real signal for us. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But hopefully we get some weather conditions as we move into December and January. Tropics, they've been quiet most of the year other than Ian, and they're a little active right now. We've had 2 named systems, Hurricane Martin, which is up in the North Atlantic, and it's just bothering the fish, and what's now a tropical depression, Lisa, which hit Belize and Yucatan, and then they are watching a disturbance out in the Atlantic, but not a high chance that it's going to form into anything, at least the next couple of days. La Nina, we are in for our 3rd winter of La Nina. It is looking like after we go into the end of this winter that it's finally going to go away and we're going to get into neutral conditions. So, but this is only the 3rd time that we've had a triple dip of La Nina. So, so something not happening too often. Now we only have records going back, I want to say the 50s, so also not a huge sample size, but in terms of what that means climatologically, it's really hard to kind of say since this is only the 3rd time, so we don't have a lot to look back on to see how the climate behaves with this. And the seasonal drought outlook, you see they are expecting through the winter at least some of the drought to be removed or likely be removed, but that area that's currently in D2 looking like it will improve somewhat but remain, and drought persisting across out in the purchase. So again, not what we're wanting to see, but yeah, like I said, we are going into the wetter time of the year, so hopefully we can start getting some rains and start eating away at the drought and start replenishing soil and groundwater levels. November fire outlook. No surprise that Kentucky and much of the Southeast and Midwest is in the above normal category. So fires are definitely something we're going to have to continue to watch out for, especially if we get extended breaks in between the rains. So in summary, it was both a below normal month for rainfall and temperatures in October. Most of Kentucky is in some type of drought or a normally dry designation, with parts of the state being in an extreme and severe drought. Stream flows and pastures have been the most impacted by the drought, but we have seen an increased amount of wildfire activity, and outlooks are hinting at a dry November, and we'll likely have drought continuing in the state until at least meteorological winter. And like I just said, that this is the 3rd year for La Nina, but this looks like this is going to be the end of it as we move into spring, as we move into neutral territory. So our next scheduled webinar is December 1st at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Central Time. As always, myself, Megan Shergowski, and Matt Dick are all available. Be contacted, and I guess we probably should put Jerry. I'm blanking on his last name now, but our new state climatologist, and Megan can chime in and let me know what his last name is. But he is our new state climatologist, and he can also be reached for feedback. And Megan, are you there?
I was just going to say it's Jerry Brodsky.
Brodsky, thank you. I knew it was a B. I could not think of it.
Hi, Chip. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
As always, if you have drought impacts, please report them to our drought and hydrologic impact reporter. It helps us a lot when we are making the drought maps and trying to see how bad it is around the state, because looking at indicators and maps from satellites can only go so far. So being able to drill down and see where impacts are happening on the ground really helps a lot. So I thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or enter it into the chat.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, great talk, Chip. Just a comment. I was asked the other day, how this drought compares to previous ones, and they were asking more about the Mississippi River and further west, but the parallel to 1988 is somewhat there, and you look at that drought, and it went actually several years into 1990 before it completely went away. But it'd be interesting to see what happens this winter, because like you showed, the forecast for the drought was to kind of alleviate or get some relief across Kentucky over the winter. But at the same time, in a neutral pattern, they're not quite sure what's going to happen. So, it could worsen, it could improve, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. But pretty unpredictable the way it looks. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd almost say 99 for Kentucky. That was one. That was more of an eastern drought, but that was the last time we really had carryover to the next year. We still had issues from in 2000 and 2001. It's kind of it wasn't a true 3-year drought, but we definitely had subpar precipitation the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point.
Anybody else? All right, we're gonna go. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you everybody for attending, and look to see you back here on December 1st.
Thanks, Chip.